There is a woman the world fears, not because she shouts, not because she demands attention, but because she listens. She listens to the voice that rises above chaos, the voice of God. Her strength isn't found in loud opinions or fleeting trends, but in quiet obedience and unshakable faith. She doesn't follow the crowd, she follows her calling. When a woman aligns her heart with divine purpose, no force can stop her. She becomes bold, wise, fearless, a threat to darkness and a beacon to the lost. The most dangerous woman is the one who listens and obeys. It's the woman who gets quiet, who prays, who listens. The most dangerous woman doesn't chase status, she chases truth. While the world scrolls, she seeks. While others react, she reflects. And when she moves with conviction, because she's not following a trend. She's following a whisper from heaven. You can't manipulate her with fear. You can't distract her with noise. You can't tempt her with shortcuts. Because she's not here to please people. She's here to obey something higher. True power isn't loud, it's grounded in faith. That kind of power doesn't need to shout, prove itself, or dominate the room. It doesn't rely on applause or recognition. It doesn't come from followers, status, or credentials. Real power comes from the quiet confidence of knowing who you are and who you belong to. It's a stillness inside you that cannot be shaken, even when the world outside is in chaos. It is rooted in something deeper than emotion. It's anchored in trust. Not just trust in yourself, but trust in something greater. That's what separates noise from substance. The woman who is grounded in faith doesn't have to argue for her worth. She already knows it. She doesn't react to every insult or try to control every outcome. She understands that battles are won in prayer before they are fought in public. Her strength is not in how she shows up in the spotlight, but in how she kneels in the dark. She doesn't panic when things fall apart because her hope isn't tied to circumstances. It's tied to promises that don't break. There is a different kind of authority in a person who walks by faith. You feel it when they speak, not because their words are loud, but because they're full of wisdom, full of peace, full of purpose. It's the kind of presence that can calm a storm without raising a voice. That's what true power looks like. It's subtle, but it's steady. It doesn't always trend, but it always transforms. The woman of faith doesn't need to announce her journey. She just walks it. She doesn't look around to see who approves. She looks above to see who guides. Her confidence isn't built in public. It's built in the private moments when no one is watching. When she chooses obedience over comfort, truth over popularity, and love over pride. This is not weakness. This is not silence. This is strength that doesn't need a stage to stand firm. But in a world that often rewards noise, flash, and drama, true power still chooses peace, clarity, and trust. It's not easily moved because it's not built on emotion. It's built on foundation. And faith is the foundation that cannot be shaken, no matter what storms come. So if you're looking to become powerful, don't just raise your voice. Raise your faith. Get grounded in something eternal. That's where the real strength lives. A woman guided by divine conviction is unshakable. She moves through the world with a quiet certainty that confuses those who rely on validation. Her decisions don't shift with popular opinion or emotional tides. They are rooted in something far deeper, a voice, a calling, a purpose that was whispered to her spirit long before the world tried to define her. She isn't led by impulse. She is led by insight. Her heart doesn't bow to fear, because her faith teaches her that storms are not signs of defeat, but opportunities to demonstrate who she truly is. She doesn't need the spotlight to feel seen or the crowd to feel powerful. Her conviction doesn't shout. It anchors her. When chaos surrounds her, she doesn't crumble. When pressure rises, she doesn't fold. Because her strength isn't reactive, it's intentional. It doesn't shout. It comes from knowing she was created on purpose for a purpose. And once a woman understands that, you can't make her small again. You'll see her stand when others sit down. You'll hear her speak truth when silence feels safer. Not because she's fearless, but because her fear doesn't lead her. She's guided by something stronger, a divine assurance that even when she doesn't understand the path, she trusts the one who does. And that kind of faith gives her a boldness that comfort cannot offer. This woman is not reckless. She's resolute. She doesn't chase influence. She carries impact. Her influence is not about how many people follow her, but how deeply she stays connected to the one she follows. And because of that, her presence carries weight. Her words carry authority. Her steps carry purpose. She doesn't need to argue about who she is. Her life speaks for itself. She doesn't have to control outcomes. She surrenders them. And in that surrender, she gains a power that control could never offer. That's why she can stand in the fire and not be consumed. That's why she can walk through loss and still carry light. That's why she can love after betrayal, forgive after pain, and rebuild when everything falls apart. She is unshakable because her conviction is not man-made. It is God-breathed. And once you've been touched by something eternal, the temporary doesn't hold the same power. It doesn't hold the same power. She knows who she is because she knows whose she is. And that knowledge shapes how she lives, how she loves, how she leads. So when life gets loud, when people get critical, when the journey gets heavy, she doesn't run, she doesn't break. She remains rooted, ready, unmoved, ready, unmoved. Because she's not chasing a crown made by people, she's walking in a calling given by God. That's the kind of woman who cannot be shaken. That's the kind of woman who changes everything. Obedience to God brings clarity in chaos. When the world becomes noisy, uncertain, and overwhelming, obedience isn't just a spiritual response. It becomes a survival strategy. While others are running in every direction, trying to make sense of the confusion, the obedient heart finds stillness. It doesn't mean the chaos disappears, but it means direction is found within it. Obedience doesn't remove the storm, but it reveals the path through it. There is something about saying yes to God that realigns your focus, settles your spirit, and sharpens your vision, even when nothing around you makes sense. Chaos invites doubt. It clouds judgment. It makes you question everything. Your identity, your purpose, your decisions. But obedience acts as a compass. It doesn't always give you the full map, but it gives you the next step. And sometimes that's all you need. Obedience creates movement in moments where overthinking would paralyze you. It teaches you that clarity isn't always about knowing everything. It's about trusting the one who does. A woman who obeys God in the middle of disorder doesn't wait until she understands everything perfectly. She follows the voice she's come to trust. She takes steps not because the ground is secure, but because the one who called her is faithful. That kind of faith-driven obedience becomes a source of calm. While the noise of the world screams confusion, her obedience whispers direction. Amen. While others chase control, she chooses surrender, and in that surrender, she receives clarity. Obedience is often misunderstood as weakness or blind following, but in truth, it takes incredible strength. It takes courage to obey when the outcome is unclear, when people don't understand, when fear tries to take over. It takes spiritual maturity to say yes when every part of you wants to say, oh, wait. But what many don't realize is that clarity doesn't come before the obedience. It comes through it. When you obey, doors open that you never saw. Distractions fall away that once overwhelmed you. People may call it coincidence, but you know it was alignment. Because when you're walking in obedience, even the chaos starts to lose its grip. You start seeing purpose in pain. You start hearing wisdom in the silence. You start noticing grace in the mess. That's not luck. That's clarity born from obedience. Obedience tunes your heart to hear the right voice. It drowns out the noise of comparison, pressure, and doubt. It grounds you in truth even when your emotions pull you in every direction. In obedience, you discover peace that makes no sense to the outside world, because it was never about understanding everything. It was about trusting the one who sees beyond everything. And that trust brings clarity no chaos can take away. She doesn't chase validation, she follows vision. Her steps are not determined by applause, approval, or attention. She isn't waiting for someone to clap for her before she moves. She moves because she sees something others don't, a purpose placed deep within her spirit that doesn't require permission to grow. She doesn't wake up asking, will they like me? She wakes up asking, am I becoming who I was created to be? That shift, from seeking validation to following vision, is what sets her apart. It's what gives her strength, direction, and peace in a world obsessed with performance. When you chase validation, you give people power over your worth. You live in reaction mode, constantly adjusting, constantly comparing, constantly needing feedback to feel like you're enough. But when you follow vision, you live by design. You operate from a deeper place. You make choices not based on what's popular, but on what's purposeful. What's purposeful? And purpose doesn't always look impressive to people. Sometimes it's misunderstood, sometimes it's criticized, sometimes it's lonely. But she's learned that the cost of vision is far better than the addiction to approval. She doesn't need everyone to see what she sees. Vision is personal. Fear. It was whispered to her heart, not to the crowd. And because of that, she no longer wastes time trying to convince people to believe in her journey. She just walks it. She doesn't need to post every move to feel seen. She knows she's seen by the one who gave her the vision in the first place. That's where her confidence comes from. That's why her steps are steady, even when the road is uncertain. Following vision requires discipline. It requires patience. It means saying no to distractions that feel good in the moment but lead nowhere. It means walking away from praise if it pulls you off your path. She has trained herself to recognize the difference between affirmation and alignment. Just because something feels validating doesn't mean it's valuable. And just because something feels hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Vision stretches you, but it doesn't betray you. Validation may make you feel good temporarily, but it won't lead you where you're called to go. This woman has learned to measure her life by impact, not impression. She's not chasing a seat at someone else's table. She's building what was given to her. Quiet, consistent, intentional, not for attention, but because she knows obedience to her vision honors the one who gave it. She doesn't need to be liked to stay faithful. She just needs to keep moving in the direction of her calling, because at the end of the day, validation fades, but vision endures. And she's not here to perform. She's here to fulfill something eternal. That's the kind of life she's living. Not one built on likes, but one built on legacy. Her courage is built in silence, not applause. It doesn't rise when the crowd is cheering. It grows in the quiet moments when no one is watching. It's easy to appear strong when you're surrounded by affirmation, when your efforts are noticed and your steps are praised. But true courage, the kind that lasts, is formed in solitude. It's born in those late-night battles with doubt, in those unseen prayers whispered through tears, in the quiet decision to keep going when quitting feels easy. Her bravery isn't a performance, it's a process. In a world that rewards noise, she has learned to value stillness. It's in the silence that she faces herself, her fears, her insecurities, her questions. And instead of running from them, she meets them with grace. That's where her strength begins. Not with public speeches or grand gestures, but with small, quiet choices. The choice to forgive when it hurts. The choice to believe when the evidence says otherwise. The choice to show up, even when no one notices. That's where her courage is carved. She's not driven by applause because she knows how quickly it fades. People cheer when they like the outcome, not always when they understand the process. But she doesn't need their cheers. Her courage doesn't depend on the external. It's internal. It's spiritual. It's anchored in who she is and what she knows she was made for. She knows that if she waited for constant support, she'd never move forward. So instead, she's learned to applaud herself in silence, not from pride, but from perseverance. The most courageous things she's done were never posted. They weren't praised. No stage, no spotlight. Just a quiet moment where she chose not to give up, where she kept her faith when things fell apart, where she let go of what was hurting her, even though it broke her heart. That's the kind of courage the world often overlooks, but it's the kind that changes everything. Her silence is not weakness. Her silence is not weakness. Is it? It's not absence, it's preparation. She understands that deep strength takes time to grow and doesn't need to announce itself to be real. She lets her life speak louder than her words. She knows that when the foundation is solid, the storms may come, but she will not fall. Because her courage wasn't built on applause. It was built in the fire, in the stillness, in the places where no one could see but God. And that's why her courage is unshakable. Because it was never about who saw her. Who's about who formed her. And in that sacred silence, she became powerful beyond explanation, not because the world told her so, but because she chose to keep walking, keep believing, and keep rising, even when no one clapped. She disrupts fear because she walks in purpose. Fear has a language. It whispers doubt, magnifies risk, and tries to paralyze potential. But purpose has a voice that speaks louder. It doesn't eliminate fear completely, but it overpowers its influence. When a woman knows why she's here, fear loses its grip. It may still show up, but it can no longer lead. She doesn't wait for fear to vanish. She moves anyway. She acts, she speaks, she builds, because her purpose demands it. And in that movement, she silences fear's lies with the truth of who she is and what she's been called to do. Fear thrives in confusion, but purpose brings clarity. She doesn't have to know every detail of the journey to take the next step. Her strength lies in knowing the direction, not in seeing the destination. That's how she keeps going when others stop, not because she's fearless, but because her mission is bigger than her emotions. She knows that fear asks, "What if you fail?" But purpose replies, "What if you're made for this?" She doesn't argue with fear. She outgrows it. She has chosen to walk in alignment with something bigger than comfort, a calling. And when you walk in calling, you stop shrinking to fit expectations. You stop holding back to keep others comfortable. You stop letting doubt dictate your decisions. Purpose has taught her that bravery isn't about being loud, it's about being clear. And clarity gives her permission to show up fully, even when her voice shakes. She's not distracted by every obstacle because she's focused on what matters. Her energy isn't wasted on fear of judgment or fear of failure. She has learned that when you chase purpose, fear becomes background noise. It doesn't disappear, but it loses its authority. And in the moments when it feels strongest, she remembers that her life has meaning beyond the temporary. That's what gives her power, not confidence in herself alone, but in the one who gave her the assignment. She disrupts fear simply by standing in truth, by showing up as herself, by refusing to stay small. And every time she chooses purpose over comfort, she sets a new standard for herself, for others, for the world around her. She becomes evidence that courage doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like quiet persistence. Sometimes it looks like failing and trying again. Sometimes it looks like showing up when no one else does. And that is enough to shift the atmosphere. Her purpose doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It asks her to walk even when the road is uncertain, to rise even when the weight is heavy, and to leave even when the outcome is unclear. And because she chooses purpose again and again, fear can't hold her hostage. She doesn't run from fear. She interrupts it. She changes the narrative. She leads with intention. And in doing so, she becomes unstoppable. So if you're wondering what true strength looks like, don't look for the loudest voice in the room. Look for the woman who walks with quiet confidence. The one who doesn't just speak, she listens. The one who doesn't just move, she follows. She listens to a voice greater than her fear, greater than her past, greater than the noise of the world. And because she listens, she leads. Because she obeys, she overcomes. Because she trusts, she transforms every space she enters. That is the most dangerous woman of all, not the one who fights for control, but the one who surrenders in faith. She is unshakable. She is unstoppable. And she is just getting started. She doesn't need a crown to rule or a stage to be seen. Her strength comes from surrender, her power from obedience. In a world full of noise, she chose to listen. In a culture chasing validation, she chose to walk in vision. That's what makes her dangerous, not to people, but to fear, doubt, and anything that stands in the way of truth. She's not moved by pressure because she's anchored in purpose. She doesn't just exist. She leads, she builds, she breaks chains. And all of it begins with one choice: to listen to God.